In our headlines on this Wednesday, December 17th, here in South Korea, the Ministries of Trade and SMEs share their policy progress reports today, and the President highlights the importance of seeking new markets amid South Korean exports' dependence on two major destinations, namely China and the US. And the new head of e-commerce platform Coupang South Korea unit apologizes for the massive leak of customer data at a parliamentary hearing on this Wednesday, as his predecessor resigns to take full responsibility, and the platform's founder cites earlier commitments for skipping the session. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump designates the Venezuelan government a foreign terrorist organization and orders a complete blockade of sanctioned oil tankers moving in and out of the Latin American country. President Lee Jae-myung has highlighted the importance of market expansion for South Korean exports given their current heavy dependence on two major destinations. The remarks were made during the day's progress reports by the Ministries of Trade and SMEs. Our Yoon Jung-min reports.
Diversifying export markets was among the key items during Wednesday's policy briefing by the Ministries of Trade and SMEs in the face of a fast-changing international order.
우리가 미국, 중국 의존도가 너무 높다 보니까 그게 너무 많이 휘둘리죠. 제가 정상회의를 몇 군데 가면서 느낀 건데 시장의 잠재력들이 상당히 있겠다 싶은 곳이 많아요.
I think it is important, above all, to manage summit deliverables to yield tangible outcomes. I also believe our ODA projects can play a role in the emerging markets.
The president instructed his officials to make the first move to make inroads into new markets and seek out ODA projects that can actually benefit recipients in terms of industrial development, rather than focusing on donation or charity. When it comes to market competition, he called for the need to allow collective bargaining power for smaller firms and franchises, currently banned by law, when negotiating with large conglomerates.
경쟁이라는 이름으로 사실은 약육강식이 이루어지고 이게 결국 비효율이나 아니면 시장 실패를 유인하잖아요. 그러니까 힘의 균형을 잡아주는 게 정말로 중요하다. 그게 바로 정부의 역할이죠.
He also instructed the officials to create an environment where startups and entrepreneurs are not afraid of failure by providing them with incentives for trial and error for a second chance.
실패 경험을 자산으로 인정해주고 거기에 오히려 더 기회를 더 북돋아 주어야 과감하게 창업에 도전할 수 있겠죠.
When it comes to technology and information theft, President Lee ordered officials to impose heavy penalty fines for eradication. For trade and industry, the policy focus of 2026 will be achieving balanced regional growth, a transition to AI, and finding U.S. investment projects that are commercially reasonable while implementing the U.S. trade deal. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, National Security Advisor Wee Sang-rak has shared the possibility of a separate agreement with the U.S. to advance South Korea's nuclear-powered submarine ambition. Our Lee Seung-jae covers his remarks.
National Security Advisor Wee Sang-rak arrived in Washington, D.C. on Tuesday for talks on the implementation of agreements reached by the leaders of South Korea and the United States and strengthening coordination on North Korea policy. Speaking to reporters, he raised the possibility of a separate South Korea-U.S. agreement related to the construction of nuclear-powered submarines. Asked what such an agreement could look like, Wee pointed to Australia as an example.
Australia was granted an exception under Section 91 of the U.S. Atomic Energy Act, and that would require a separate agreement between the two countries. We may also need that, so we will discuss the possibility.
Wee suggested South Korea could similarly explore a separate agreement with Washington that would allow it to work around restrictions in the existing South Korea-U.S. nuclear cooperation agreement, which prohibits the military use of nuclear materials. Wee said it remains unclear whether the two sides will announce the creation of a formal consultative body on nuclear-powered submarines. While there is no agreement to establish issue-specific working groups, He said both sides are seeking ways to speed up consultations. We also emphasize close policy coordination on North Korea. He said he does not believe the issue is low on Washington's list of priorities, adding that while Seoul has made progress in stabilizing relations with regional powers, inter-Korean relations have lagged, and now there is an opportunity to make progress.
Isn't it true that a favourable atmosphere has formed between South Korea and the US among its various allies? If it's an opportunity, it's an opportunity. With this, North Korea relations must also be managed well. Therefore, coordination and cooperation between South Korea and the US are always crucial.
Wee is also scheduled to visit New York for talks with United Nations officials before returning to South Korea. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
The new head of e-commerce platform Coupang's South Korea unit apologizes for the massive leak of customer data at a parliamentary hearing on this Wednesday, as his predecessor resigns to take full responsibility, while the platform's founder cites overseas commitments for skipping the session. Our Moon Hae-ryun has the latest.
South Korea's National Assembly opened a hearing on Wednesday into the massive data breach at e-commerce giant Coupang, which exposed the personal information of millions of users. Lawmakers from the Science, ICT, Broadcasting and Communications Committee questioned newly appointed executives in the absence of founder and chairman Kim Bum-seok and former CEO Park Dae-jun, drawing criticism that senior decision-makers were again avoiding direct accountability. Questions focused on how the breach occurred, the company's data security practices, internal oversight, and who should ultimately bear responsibility. Harold Rogers, the new CEO of US-based Coupang Inc., apologized to Korean customers and addressed criticism over the company's limited response.
The investigation is ongoing. We're working daily, around the clock, with multiple regulators here in Korea. As we learn and confirm the facts, we will be rolling out a responsible compensation plan for our customers.
So far, Coupang has limited its response to basic prevention guidelines and simplified account deletion. Rogers also faced pointed questions over Coupang's revenue structure and criticism that its top leadership was avoiding accountability.
In 2024, Coupang's revenue amounted to 41.29 trillion Korean won, and 90% of that came from South Korea, 36.4 trillion won, 90%. Does it make any sense for witness Kim Bum-seok to not be here while talking about being a global company?
Ahead of the hearing, Kim submitted a written explanation citing overseas residence and global business commitments, while Park resigned just a week earlier. The Assembly's National Policy Committee has since decided to file an official charge against Kim for failing to appear without justifiable reason and pass legislation allowing fines of up to 10% of total revenue for serious data breaches. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
In other news, consumer prices are forecast to hover at 2.1% next year, but a key variable is the South Korean currency, with the Bank of Korea concerned about a prolonged state of a weaker won. Our correspondent Kim Do-yeon explains.
The Bank of Korea projects consumer prices to increase by 2.1% next year, but highlighted a recent rebound in prices due to exchange rate volatility. Governor Lee Chang-yong stated on Wednesday during an inflation briefing that if the exchange rate continues at its current high level, inflation is likely to rise higher than the current forecast.
Several factors are compounding to drive up recent consumer inflation. Unlike previous years, unfavorable weather has kept agricultural and fishery prices high, while the rising exchange rate has kept oil prices strong.
Taking a closer look at this year's inflation trend, consumer price inflation started the year hovering above the 2% range. Inflation slowed by the summer, hitting a yearly low of 1.7% in August due to temporary factors. However, inflation started creeping up again in the fourth quarter, with prices in both October and November 2.4% higher than the year before. Despite this recent volatility, the central bank is maintaining its baseline forecast for next year at 2.1%. The BOK expects stability because the current economic recovery is led by the IT sector, which tends to have a limited immediate impact on general consumer prices. However, the exchange rate remains a critical variable. The bank's analysis shows that if the $1 rate persists around the 1,471 level, inflation could exceed its forecast and rise to the mid-2% range. Governor Lee also took the opportunity to address the weakness of the Korean won in detail. He clarified that the current situation is not a financial crisis in the traditional sense where banks fail or the nation faces default. However, he admitted that the continued weakness of the won is deeply concerning due to its social impact.
I completely disagree that this is a traditional financial crisis, but in other respects, I would call it a crisis, and I am deeply worried. The current exchange rate has a significant impact on inflation. Furthermore, when rates rise like this, the divide between those who benefit and those who lose becomes extreme.
Governor Lee emphasized that considering this potential for growth polarization, the current exchange rate level is far from reassuring and requires vigilance to prevent social discord. Kim Do-hee, Arirang News.
U.S. President Donald Trump has labeled the Venezuelan government a foreign terrorist organization and ordered a complete blockade of sanctioned oil tankers to and from the Latin American country. Our Ian Jin reports.
U.S. President Donald Trump has formally designated Venezuela's Cartel de los Soles as a foreign terrorist organization and alleged that group's members include the Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and other high-ranking officials. In a Truth Social post on Tuesday, Trump also ordered a complete and total blockade of sanctioned oil tankers moving in and out of Venezuela, citing reasons of terrorism, drug smuggling, and human trafficking. This comes as the Trump administration has been upping the pressure on Maduro in recent months, including through a large military buildup in the Caribbean involving thousands of troops and the world's largest aircraft carrier, the USS Gerald Ford. The U.S. has also carried out more than 24 strikes on alleged drug vessels, killing at least 90 people. The Venezuelan government has issued a statement in response in which it rejected Trump's threat, calling it grotesque, and saying the blockade is, quote, absolutely irrational. Venezuela has in turn accused Washington of seeking to steal its resources. Venezuela is home to some of the world's largest oil reserves, and the oil tanker blockade targets Maduro's main source of income. U.S. crude futures climbed over 1% to $55.96 a barrel in Asian trading after Trump's announcement. A potential reduction in Venezuelan oil exports may drive oil prices up, but it remains unclear how Trump will impose the move against the sanctioned vessels, and experts have assessed that the blockade alone is not enough to cause a sustained spike in crude prices. Some U.S. lawmakers and legal experts have called Trump's latest blockade order an act of war, as blockades have traditionally been treated as permissible instruments of war under strict conditions. It has been reported that U.S. lawmakers will vote on a resolution directing the president to end hostilities with Venezuela on Thursday. Ian Jin, Arirang News.
North Korea's Kim Jong-il was at the Kumsusan Palace of the Sun on this Wednesday to mark the 14th anniversary of the death of his father and former leader Kim Jong-il. According to the regime state media, he was accompanied by senior officials, including members of the Standing Committee of the Political Bureau of the Workers' Party of Korea. Since Kim Jong-il's death back in 2011, Kim Jong-un has visited the palace around this time every year, with the exception of the year 2022. The second round of sale for Samsung's 3-panel foldable device, Galaxy Z TriFold, opened this morning and it sold out in 2 minutes. The sale started at 10 a.m. after the initial batch sold out in just 5 minutes last Friday. Samsung has not disclosed the number of phones sold. While the Galaxy Z TriFold's price tag sits at roughly 3.6 million Korean won, scarcity has driven resale prices on secondary markets to between 4 and 5.5 million won. The device features a 10-inch screen when fully unfolded and is the thinnest among the Galaxy foldable series, powered by the Snapdragon 8 Elite platform. The second season of the Netflix reality series Culinary Class Wars has hit the small screen, and amid the excitement, its producers and chefs sat down with the press here. Our culture correspondent Park Geon-woo files this report.
Flames and sparks fly as two culinary classes collide. The hit Netflix cooking competition, Culinary Class Wars, is back with a new season. Pitting 20 white spoons, established chefs, against 80 black spoons, the underdogs determined to take them down. Producers say assembling the new season's lineup was a surprise in itself.
Many chefs who declined in season 1 gathered the courage to apply this time. We even reached out to some renowned chefs, expecting rejection, but many accepted right away. Once the lineup was complete, we couldn't wait to reveal it.
The white spoon lineup is stacked, ranging from Son Jo-won, the only Korean chef operating 2 Michelin one-star restaurants in Korea, to Sun Jae, a revered monk known for temple food. But the black spoons are far from pushovers, with many running popular restaurants known for long lines and loyal customers. The series first made headlines last year, becoming the first Korean variety show to top Netflix's non-English TV rankings for 3 consecutive weeks, and this time it aims to recapture that global momentum. While the show entertains audiences worldwide, chefs say it offers something deeper than competition.
I was questioning whether I was still truly a chef. Through the show, I realized how much I still love cooking. Each of the 100 chefs has their own story, and I hope viewers focus on them as they can be a real source of comfort, as it was for me.
This show was a challenge for me as well. I believe growth comes from overcoming challenges. The previous season gave renewed energy to the culinary scene, so I hope more attention is given to the chefs, even to those that are not on the show.
Producers say the show's success also shaped its direction.
As the show performed well overseas, we thought about how the new show could contribute to Korea in some way. So, we chose to spotlight not only famous local specialties, but also lesser-known ones of high quality.
The first 3 episodes of Season 2 premiered Tuesday, firing the opening shot in what promises to be a full-scale culinary war. The battle continues through January 13th, leaving viewers to wonder, who will win? And can the series reclaim its global crown? Park Geon-woo, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, director Park Chan-wook's film No Other Choice has been named a preliminary nominee for an Oscar in the International Feature Film category. The shortlists for 12 categories were announced back on Tuesday. In the International Feature Film category, 15 films were selected from submissions representing 86 countries and regions, including South Korea. Also shortlisted was the song Golden from Netflix animation K-pop Demon Hunters for Best Original Song. Final nominees will be announced on January 22nd, with the 98th Academy Awards set to take place on March 15th.
This is The World Now, bringing you everything you need to know from around the globe. In the United States, Los Angeles prosecutors charged Nick Reiner, the son of filmmaker Rob Reiner, with 2 counts of first-degree murder in the killing of his parents. District Attorney Nathan Hochman announced the charges at a news conference on Tuesday, saying prosecutors will also pursue special circumstances for multiple murders and allege Reiner used a knife in the attack. Police found Rob Reiner and his wife Michelle Singer Reiner dead from apparent stab wounds inside their Los Angeles home on Sunday. Officers arrested Nick Reiner several hours later, and he is now being held without bail. He has not entered a plea, and authorities have not disclosed a motive. Director Rob Reiner was best known for films such as When Harry Met Sally and A Few Good Men. Michelle Singer Reiner was a photographer and LGBTQ+ rights advocate. In Australia, newly released dashcam footage captured the final moments of a couple who confronted a gunman moments before the deadly mass shooting at Sydney's Bondi Beach. The footage released on Tuesday shows 69-year-old Boris Gurman wrestling a suspected attacker to the ground on Campbell Parade and briefly taking the gun as his wife Sophia Gurman stood nearby. CNN verified the video and confirmed the confrontation occurred just meters from where the shooter later opened fire at a Hanukkah event. Australian media identified the Gurmans as the first victims of the rampage that killed at least 15 people. Both died at the scene. Family members said the couple acted instinctively to protect others. Police later recovered an ISIS flag displayed on the attacker's vehicle. Authorities continue to investigate the attack. In the United States, newly released government data on Tuesday showed a sharp labor market slowdown, with layoffs creeping up and the hiring rate remaining at lows similar to the pandemic and the aftermath of the Great Recession. The economy lost 105,000 jobs in October, but added 64,000 jobs in November. The unemployment rate in November rose to 4.6%, the highest level since 2021. Officials attributed the October losses largely to federal workforce reductions following Trump administration cutbacks. Economists also pointed to uncertainty from tariffs and persistently high interest rates. The Federal Reserve cut rates last week, but signaled caution, with policymakers divided over further easing. In the United Kingdom, a Liverpool court on Tuesday sentenced a driver who plowed into a celebrating crowd to 21 years and 6 months in prison. Paul Doyle drove into a crowd during the May 26th parade celebrating Liverpool's Premier League title win. He injured more than 130 people before a bystander forced the vehicle to stop. Prosecutors said Doyle acted in rage after becoming stuck in traffic. The 54-year-old pleaded guilty to 31 charges, including dangerous driving and causing grievous bodily harm. The judge rejected Doyle's claim of panic and praised the bystander whose intervention prevented further injuries. Chu Ji-han, Arirang News.
As the day goes on, most of the fog from the morning has lifted, but stagnant air has caused air quality issues. Fine dust was at bad levels in most parts of the country throughout the day. The good news is that air quality will recover to normal levels tomorrow. Meanwhile, rain or snow has been falling along the East Coast throughout the day, with 5 to 10 millimeters of rain, while in the mountainous areas of Gangwon province, about 1 to 3 centimeters of snow could accumulate by tonight. Sub-zero temperatures will return tomorrow morning, with Seoul and Gyeongju at -2 degrees, Chuncheon at -5 degrees. Highs will rise up to 7 degrees in Seoul, 11 degrees in Gwangju and Daegu. Rain nationwide is in the forecast on Saturday. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
Those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. As always, thank you for watching.